Alright, this video is going to contain question 23 through 31. Alright, 23, 24, and 25 are going to ask you guys to draw a sketch of your graph, and you're more than welcome to use Desmos to kind of get your sketch to start with. Alright, so this one, we have a -1 behind our function, so everything's going to move down 1. So that's where my function is going to start. I can draw that. This is a positive function, so it's going to go up and over. Remember domain and range. Domain deals with your x, range deals with your y. Domain, remember your pointy end is going to be whichever direction the function is going. My function is going to the right, so it's going to be greater than or equal to. And I look at my x-axis where this starts. This starts at 0 on my x-axis. My range, if it's going up and over, it's going to be greater than or equal to, so this one's going to be greater than or equal to, and it starts at -1 on my y-axis. Alright, question 24. Again, we want to draw a sketch. This -1 under my function means I'm actually going to go to the right 1, and this +3 behind it means I have to go up 3. So my function is going to start, if it'll draw, somewhere. It's not drawing very well, sorry. It doesn't like to do dots. There we go. There's my point, and then it's going to go up and over if it's a positive function. So again, my domain is my x, range is my y. This one is going to the right, so it's going to be pointing into the right. And we look back at the x value it starts at, which is 1. Range, this one's going up and over, so it's going to be greater than or equal to, and it starts at 3 on my y-axis. 25, again, drawing a sketch. This +2 underneath my function means I have to go to the left 2. So there's where my function starts. Since this one is negative, instead of going up and over, it's going to go down and over. So my domain and my range. This one again is going to the right, so it is going to be a greater than or equal to, and it starts at -2 on my x-axis. Since it's going down and over, it's going to be a less than or equal to, and I go back to my y-axis, and it starts at y on my y-axis. Question 26 is talking about an inverse function. Alright, so with my inverse function, I don't have any left or right movements with my x, but it does have to go, so it does not have a vertical asymptote other than my actual y-axis. And my function does have a +2, so it's going to have a horizontal asymptote crossing at 2. Now, in this case, again, it wants you to list your vertical asymptotes and your horizontal asymptotes. My vertical asymptote deals with the number underneath here with the x, opposite sign, which in this case is just x equals 0. My horizontal asymptote is y equals 2. And again, you can use Desmos to kind of get yourself a sketch, but this one should be in the upper, well, I'm going to change color, I think, so that way we can see it a little better. But it's going to be in the upper right and lower left, so it should look something like that. Once you have your vertical and horizontal asymptotes, remember it's very easy to find your domain and range for these. Your domain and range are always going to be all real numbers for both. Your domain is going to be all x's except for your asymptote. Same thing with your range, it's going to be all except for your asymptote. Okay. Alright, question 27. Again, I need to list my vertical asymptote and horizontal asymptote. Okay. My vertical asymptote, again, goes with this number right here. We just changed the sign, so it's equal to -2. My horizontal asymptote deals with this one, so it's equal to 3. Again, we could list our domain and range first if you wanted to, since you already have those. They're both, again, always all real numbers, except for x cannot equal your asymptote, and y cannot equal your asymptote. So this function has a vertical asymptote at -2. So again, that dashed line is an imaginary line that it doesn't actually cross. My horizontal asymptote's at 3. Okay, it's hard to make dashed lines with this thing. But again, once I have my asymptotes drawn, it's just there to help me draw. This one is in the upper right and lower left function. Alright, question 28. Okay, so again, my vertical asymptote again deals with this number, it just changes sign, so x is equal to 3. Horizontal asymptote deals with this number, and it's going to stay the same. So I can easily list my domain and range, again as all real numbers. Sorry, that looks really crappy. And just remember that it cannot equal the asymptotes though, so my x cannot be 3, and my y cannot be 1. So if I go through and draw a sketch of this one, I have a vertical asymptote at 3. Horizontal asymptote at 1. There we go. Now, in this one, notice how our top number is negative, so instead of being in the upper right and lower left, it's going to be in the lower right and upper left. And again, you can use Desmos to help you draw your sketch, but just make sure you list out your asymptotes as well as your domain and range. Alright, question 29, we want to go through and factor. So remember what we want to do. If you have a number in front of x squared, just like you will on your test, multiply that number to the last number. So what I end up getting is x squared plus 4x minus 12. And then we just had to find two numbers that are going to multiply to this, but they need to add to that. So in this case, two numbers are going to multiply to negative 12, but add to 4 would be positive 6 and negative 2. But just remember, whatever number it was that you multiplied away, since we multiplied away that 3 at the beginning, we have to divide it back in. And that tends to be the part that most students miss. So, if in fact divides nicely, which this first one does, we go ahead and do that. If it does not, you put that bottom number in the front, so it's be 3x minus 2. Now, keep in mind that that is my actual factors. This one wants me to solve by factoring. So once you're in factored form, and this one right here, it's just going to be opposite sign, so negative 2. Now, this form doesn't help us that much, so you kind of go back to this fraction over there. You just change the sign. So instead of a negative 2/3, it becomes a positive 2/3. Alright, question 30. The only 30, 60, 90 that I put on your test. And in this one, I know the number across from my 30, so that means my hypotenuse is double that. And the one across from 60 is going to be this original number with a square root of 3. Alright, and the very last question is a perimeter question using these types of angles. Alright, so in this case, notice I have a 30 degrees, which means this is a 60 degrees. And we know the one across from the 30, so that means my hypotenuse is going to be double that. And the other side is going to be that number, square root of 3. Well, since we are dealing with a rectangle, if this side's 5 square root of 3, this one's 5 square root of 3. Sorry, it's goofy looking 5. And if this side up here is 4, this side is also 4. Which means now that I have enough to be able to find my perimeter to it. So we're going to add up all the outside edges. So we get 10 and 4 and 4, which is 18, plus another 5 is 23, so we get 23. This is not a like term, so you just add it with it.